Odesa's path to UNESCO began more than 15 years ago. In 2009, the historic city center was inscribed on the UNESCO tentative World Heritage List. In 2015, work began on the preparation of the nomination dossier, the active phase of which coincided with the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. On January 24, 2023, at the 18th extraordinary session of the UNESCO World Heritage Committee, the historic center of Odesa was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List under the accelerated procedure on the list of the World Heritage in danger. The historic center of Odesa was recognized as a unique example of an architectural ensemble created under the influence of European traditions, which has preserved the original planning structure and historical buildings of the 19th and 20th centuries and is of high value to the World Heritage. The ceremony dedicated to the inclusion of the historic center of Odesa in the UNESCO World Heritage List was attended by UNESCO Director General Audrey Azoulay. After that, work began on implementing the recommendations of the UNESCO Committee. Among them is the expansion of the boundaries of the World Heritage property, but the exclusion of the territory of the Odesa port from these boundaries. This recommendation has been implemented. In April 2024, the map was changed in accordance with the committee's recommendations and posted on the official UNESCO website. A request was also prepared for minor changes to the boundaries of the buffer zone of the World Heritage property. A map with the expanded boundaries of the buffer zone was developed, covering the World Heritage property from all sides. According to the proposed changes, the area of the buffer zone has to be increased from 618 hectares to 664 hectares. Currently, the military aggression of the Russian Federation poses a significant threat to the historic center of Odesa. The aggressor country continues to inflict devastating blows on the city. During 2023-2024, about 10 large-scale attacks were carried out on the territory of the World Heritage property and its buffer zone. Starting in July 2023 and throughout all 2024, about 140 cultural heritage sites were damaged as a result of Russian attacks. On January 31st this year, another large-scale attack was carried out on the historic center of Odesa. 20 cultural heritage sites were additionally damaged. Among them are one of the most famous architectural structures, the legendary Bristol Hotel and the Philharmonic Theatre, which has been under enhanced UNESCO protection since 2023. The city has done a lot of work to fix the damage and overcome the consequences of emergencies that occur after strikes on historic buildings, as well as to carry out emergency work. On the way of implementing committee's recommendations after inclusion of the historic center of Odesa in the UNESCO World Heritage List, a number of critical legislative and organizational barriers were identified. First, insufficient legal framework regulating the process of preparation and approval of scientific and design documentation to determine the boundaries and modes of use of the World Heritage property, its territory and buffer zone. Second, lack of funds in the state budget for the development of scientific and project documentation to determine the boundaries and modes of use of the World Heritage property in its territory. Third, uncertainty of the attributes of the universal value of a World Heritage property, which makes it difficult to specify the elements that should be protected and preserved by the state of Ukraine. And fourth, unregulated legislative norms on the peculiarities of decolonization within the World Heritage property, lack of clear and democratic procedures for thinking historical events and monuments of different eras. The latter problem has become particularly acute in the context of the order of the Odesa Regional Military Administration. First order of the Regional Military Administration of 26 of July 2024, number 694A, on renaming place names and settlements of Odesa region, and the second order of 26 of July, number 695, on dismantling monuments, memorials, and their individual elements containing symbols of Russian imperial policy in Odesa region. Thus, according to the document, 19 monuments in Odesa were subject to dismantling, transfer, removal from public space. Among them are monuments to worldwide known writers Isaac Babel, Alexander Pushkin, as well as other 44 memorial plaques on Odesa's famous writers, including Valentin Kataev, Eduard Bagritsky, Konstantin Paustovsky, Ivan Bunin, Evgeny Petrov, Alexander Pushkin, and Isaac Babel. The history of Odesa is the history of a multicultural, multinational city with a rich literary heritage. The works of Odesa authors have been translated into many languages. At different times, writers who are known all over the world lived and worked in Odesa. Significant achievements in literature allowed Odesa to be included in the UNESCO Creative Cities Network in 2019. This status is reflected in the city's toponymy. Because of that, the city municipality found itself in a difficult situation, requiring on the one hand to comply with the UNESCO Convention in 1972 concerning the protection of the World Heritage and ensure the preservation of World Heritage property, and on another hand to comply with the regulatory documents of public authorities that may affect the condition and value of the site. Could the dismantling of monuments and plaques associated with Odesa's literary figures, as well as the removal of their names from the city's toponymy, threaten Odesa's status as a UNESCO Creative City of Literature? This is the question. And what steps should the municipality take to, on the one hand, clear the city's public space of symbols of Russian imperial policy, and on the other hand, preserve the unique cultural heritage of Odesa's historic center that makes it recognizable in the world? Only through a carefully thought-out strategy a solution can be found that will preserve Odesa's authenticity and its uniqueness as a UNESCO Creative City.